Hey guys, Star Wars Gazer here, bringing you all things Star Wars and more. In today's video, I will be breaking down the first 3 episodes of Andor Season 2, and then giving my opinion and thoughts on them at the end. So, let's begin. In episode 1, we open up with a worker of the Empire going to check on a prototype of a new type of TIE fighter. She enters the cockpit with some type of handheld device, enters a few things, and then leaves and sticks the handheld device on the droid outside the ship. She then meets up with Cassian, who is dressed up as an Imperial TIE pilot. The worker asks Cassian if what she is doing is all worth it, especially if she is going to die. Cassian reassures her that the Empire cannot win, and what she's doing will make a difference. We then see Cassian make his way to the prototype fighter, and as he gets in, we can kind of see some confusion on his face as he tries to figure out how to fly this thing or make it work. We end up learning later that he wasn't trained to fly that type of TIE fighter, and so we see him struggle, and he ends up figuring out how to get the seat up and how to turn the TIE fighter on. However, he's not able to make it fly, so he ends up barely getting it off the ground and is hitting the walls and trying to figure out how to make this work. As he does this, we see a group of stormtroopers come into the docking bay and watch as this TIE fighter is just swinging around the room, hitting the walls. They eventually begin to fire on the TIE fighter, and Cassian ends up figuring out how to use the guns and completely obliterates the stormtroopers. Then, after a brief minute, Cassian ends up shooting a hole through the blast doors that were closed and is able to get out. But he ends up going sliding down the snowy hill and gets fired on by 2 other TIE fighters. He barely manages to escape and is able to primitively fly the TIE fighter and ends up making an escape, to which he lands on a jungle-like planet in which he runs into a group of what we would eventually come to find to be a very unintelligent group of mercenaries. These mercenaries take Cassian to be a true Imperial TIE fighter pilot and hold him hostage. The fighters inform Cassian that his friend Porky or Porkin or something like that he has been waiting on is dead. However, they don't believe Cassian that he is not an Imperial. This leads to the group taking him hostage. Cassian tries to explain to them that he is part of the Rebel Alliance, and all they can ask is which one, but Cassian cannot tell them yet, so they continue to hold him hostage. Meanwhile, on the Malthine Divide, Director Krennic holds a meeting with top officials about the Gamorrean spiders and how their webs are used to create fine clothing out of the silky webs. Krennic wants to use this and other planets to begin, quote, audits, end quote, which will allow them to eventually take over other planets. The goal is total control of resources across the galaxy to help with the Imperial cause. While all that is taking place, we are also ushered into the Mon Mothma state, where wedding festivities are beginning for the arranged marriage between Mon Mothma's daughter and a fellow senator's son. In episode 2, we are led back to where Cassian is being held hostage by the band of mercenaries, and a turf war ends up breaking out between the 2 mercenaries. A couple of mercenaries get shot and they end up splitting ways. We see a group of them end up setting up camp by the TIE fighter, and then the other group setting up camp inside a wrecked ship sitting on the floor of the force that they are on. Eventually, we come to understand that there's some type of monster outside that comes out during the night. We find this out because as 2 of the mercenaries are attempting to belly crawl across to the TIE fighter, part of a leg was found, we have some goggles that were found, and it's determined that there's something out there that ate them. All the while, Cassian continues to try and talk his way out of his situation. Eventually, we see he's able to escape in the TIE fighter and leaves everyone on the jungle floor to fend for themselves against the monster who has attacked and just eaten a few of their friends. We also find out in this episode that Dedra and Cyril are in a relationship and living together, and that troubles begin to mount for Mon Mothma as she tries to host all of these people for this wedding. And then we have episode 3. In episode 3, Cassian ends up finding out that the Imperials have begun to audit different planets, including the planets that Bix and his other friends are on, and immediately goes to help them. Literally drops the mic that he's using to talk. Mon Mothma has a conversation with her daughter about the wedding and the festivities, and tells her daughter that she doesn't need to go through with it if she doesn't want to. But her daughter ends up going through with it in the end. In this episode, we also get to see Dedra put Cyril's mom in her place and warn her that if she causes 1 ounce of anxiety for Cyril, she will be hard-pressed to ever see her son again. The episode ends with 2 different scenes. One in which Cassian does show up on the planet that Bix and the friends are on, and he's able to rescue Bix, but one of his 3 friends end up dying. The entire episode ends with a rave robot playing music for the wedding festivities, and we see Mon Mothma sucking down drinks, getting drunk, and dancing the night away, so to speak. And even though she's dancing at the wedding, if you look at her, you can kind of tell it's definitely a depressed dance. She's trying to forget about her problems for the time being. So overall, guys, I enjoyed the 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. They weren't my favorite, but I was hoping there would be a little bit more fast-paced. However, I am hopeful that they will be quite a bit more fast-paced as the rest of this season continues. I would say for me, ranking these 3 episodes, I would put episode 3 as my favorite, episode 1 as my second, and episode 2 just didn't really have a whole lot. It was pretty boring, the entire episode, in my opinion. It is pretty crazy that they are dropping 3 episodes each week. Now, there is one episode in particular that I would like to address. It has a scene in it that has caused a lot of scrutiny and unease, and deservedly so. There is a scene in which Bix is assaulted by an Imperial officer. Why the directors and Disney chose to put this in the show, I do not know, but I do not feel that it belongs in Star Wars at all. I think the best way to have handled this is you have the Imperial officer get close, say he likes to relax, touch her hand, and then the scene cuts. The same way that we saw Anakin come into the Jedi Temple, go into the council chambers, have those kids ask him what's next, and he ignites his lightsaber, and we cut scenes. You don't see the actual killing, but you know exactly what happens. I would have liked to have seen something similar in this, where we get to see the Imperial officer touch her and cut scenes, and we come back to Bix hitting him upside the head with the hammer, him stumbling outside, and then falling and hitting his head. You don't need to see the entire thing to know what happened. I think that's something that we can all agree on. There are people that watch Star Wars, and you may be one of them if you're watching this, who might have to deal or have dealt with this sort of thing in the past. And for it to be in Star Wars is inexcusable. Like you, I use Star Wars as an escape. And so to have this type of thing in here is inexcusable in my opinion. Furthermore, people just don't need to see this in general. I feel that this was unnecessary and hurtful towards the impression of Star Wars as a whole. I hope they are able to move on and never include an episode or a scene like this ever again. I think it was distasteful and disgraceful. Again, with that being said, I do hope that next week's episodes are faster paced. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope you enjoyed this quick breakdown of the first 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. I'm sure I missed something, so if I did, please be sure to comment down below what I missed and let me know your thoughts on the first 3 episodes overall. And let me know too, what would you rate the first 3 episodes out of 10? For me, I give it about a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you, and may the Force be with you always.